Hi screen printers, this is Colin from Ryonet. Today we're going to be registering a 4-color design. The same 4-color design that you guys saw me do the white plate demonstration and the color separations on. So that is already here, ready to go. I've already done my films and my screens. And we're doing this on the Riley 250. This is the 4x2. I'll be using the Eco Frame with the 157 Hydro Mesh for my base white, in standard 230 mesh for my top colors, just like I did with showing you on the registration marks and the info that I put in there for redundancy's sake. I will be using FN inks for this. I've made 3 custom colors. Looked up the Pantone book, took some mixing white and that we're playing around with and some colors and playing with making some Pantone colors. Info in the future on that. I want to start with talking about how to get the 250 set up and in plane and ready to register so that when you go from design to design, it's more consistent. One of the first things we'll do is when we get our press in, we need to make sure that our heads are level and that our tilt is set. And I'm also going to show you how to go about and manipulate the tilt. So I have here 4 quarters. This is an old school leveling technique. You just need something that is consistent so that you can check where your screen is off, where it's too high, too low. I chose quarters. They're all milled exactly, essentially exactly the same. Whatever you choose, whether it's washers or something else, as long as they're the same, go ahead and use it. And we put it in the 4 corners, so that when our screen comes down and we have locked that screen in, make sure that's settled, we can depress our fingers and we can check that everything is the same side to side and front to back. So if you need to adjust this, we take our wrench and we will end up loosening one of these side clamp bolts here. There's one on this side, one on this side. And if you loosen it, you can adjust the side to side tilt. Obviously, this is a little extreme, but this is for the video. So I want to bring this back down to where I touch this, I can feel the off contact, and then I want to lock it in, not all the way, just a little bit, because we still need to have a little bit of wiggle. So you don't want this totally tight, otherwise you won't be able to move the other side. Move this, and then we're gonna go, and when we check, a little bit of screen deflection, pressing down to see how by feel this is off. So you can either try and make it just a little bit off or completely flush with the coin. Just remember that this is setting your off contact in essence. So you want to be consistent across all the heads. I've already done the other 3 screens and I'm demonstrating this here with my base white. So that feels for me very consistent. Front and back, top. So I'm going to lock this in, get it snug, make sure the other side is snug. Now these are front to back, very consistent. So in order to adjust my tilt, because on a manual press, you typically want the top front of your screen to be just a little bit higher for reasons that I'll talk about more as we're actually pulling squeegees, but it helps with screen liftoff after you finish pulling your squeegee. Since this is the only clamp point that you have for any kind of rigidity for keeping things parallel, we know that the further out this goes, the more it's going to dip down, and if it's stuck to ink, it's going to want to stay there. So this is actually going to help pull it back. So we loosen this wing nut, and then there's another bolt. You can see this here, but we have the bolt on the other side of the camera, and you want to loosen it, just the bottom bolt. And then with this loose, we can either get this to tilt up, and I'm going to do an extreme tilt so you can see how much that can tilt up. Obviously, we don't want this much when we're printing, but that's a an example, and we move it the other direction. And what I want is I want just a little more off contact here at the top of my screen compared to the bottom of my screen. Bottom of the screen is where the clamp is, top of my screen is where I'll be printing from, just to assist. And again, it's really not much. It's a very, very small amount. So I like where that's at. I'm gonna lock the wing nut, lock this bottom nut in. Double check. There we go, just a little more off contact. Now, you saw me lift the screen and do like a little bounce. Everything in the print head of every press is a moving part, and they all clamp together. I will, when I'm talking to customers, I will refer to these as tectonic plates, and we all know tectonic plates, over time, pressures build up and you get little earthquakes. So it's a really good analogy to show that these will shift just a little bit. As you clamp these down, there's a little bit of tension, and as you bounce this and move this around, bump into the gate, whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to cause vibrations that will allow these plates to loosen a little bit where that tension is and even out. So you'll see small amounts of slippage doing that. So it's just a habit that most manual printers have gotten into to give that a little bit of a bounce. So I like where that's at, and I'm going to call that screen good. So one of the things you'll notice with the 250 is we don't have the Z-axis off contact like we have on the Riley 300. We have the X and the Y, and we have the head tilt, but we don't have a central Z. So that's an off, something that's an easy up-down off contact adjustment. So you'll see something like going from a thinner substrate like a t-shirt to a sweatshirt, we need to bring our screens up some. But if we take and try to lift the screen in the print head, then we're going to go out of register. So what we want to do is we want to find a way to increase this off contact point here. So I'm going to show you by taking one of these quarters, placing it there. We all know the thickness of a quarter, how much off contact change you'll get. And that's quite dramatic for just a small adjustment here and then the radial adjustment there. So it goes up quite a bit, but we're still locked in. We're still locked into the gate. So you want to find something that's thinner than a quarter. I took an ultimate cleanup card, cut that, and I found that it was still a little high. So we need a very thin shim if you need to adjust any central off contact adjustment. So we've talked about how to adjust your central off contact for those times where you're going to need to go to a thicker substrate. We've talked about head tilt. We've talked about getting your heads into plane. The next thing we'll talk about is actually setting up and getting your design into register in the most efficient manner possible. So whenever I'm setting up my designs, I like to register to a printed base. There's a couple of ways to do it. One is by taking a film that you use to shoot your screens, place it on your platen, and then register to that. I did that for many years. There's nothing wrong with it. My habit lately has become to register to the base white. So I'll print the base white and then register my colors on top of it. First thing I'll do is I will align my screen to the black center line that I've created here. Usually I will have a top line and I'll have marks showing distance down, putting where you want to put the collar and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into that great of detail here today. So I'm just going to get my center lines up and ready. I'm going to pull my screen out back from the back of the clamp just a little bit to give it a little bit of breathing room. Get it centered, and then I'm going to clamp it in. Whenever you clamp, you want to try and do both sides at the same time under the same amount of pressure. So one of the things you'll see here is during the clamp down here, I had just a little bit of shift. So from this registration mark, move it over just a little bit. And that can happen during the clamp down process. You can have a screen that has that's going to pull in one direction versus another. So that's why getting this dialed in and a little bit and learning how to clamp that in can be helpful. So I did that again. Boom. So I just adjusted how this was actually moving down towards the screen. And that's in. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put ink in the screen. I'm going to print a shirt, and we're going to go through those steps. All right, so we're back from the fast forward. One of the things you noticed was a second shirt on the other platen over there. That's simply there for that when I do end up leaving the flash over that platen, we have something there to soak up some of the heat so that I don't accidentally burn the platen. And while I'm talking, you've noticed I can kind of get forgetful about where some of my things are. I'll get absorbed in what I'm saying. And I can burn a platen. I'd really like to not do that. So you notice that I use very little pressure to clear the screen. FN ink is very creamy, very easy to print. Hydro allows the ink to flow very easily. You can see a deeper dive on getting white ink to clear the screen and getting it really smooth in the white ink on black with the smoothing video. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to register my screens, and after I'm done registering or locking in my screens, I'm going to put some clear tape on the white base to help with registering colors, and I'll show you why I'm doing that when we get there. So at this point, we'll pick fast forward moments, times to focus.
You want to call out a little bit of what you're trying to do on this one, and then we'll fast forward
Yep.
to the others?
Yep. So what I'm looking at when I'm staring at my screen right now is I'm looking at where the registration marks on my screen are falling in relation to my registration marks on the shirt. And I know that when I put a squeegee down and I pull that squeegee, my screen and my mesh specifically is going to travel a little bit with that squeegee due to the pressure and the pull and the grip that ink has on the mesh. So when I lock this in, I actually want my registration marks to be down just a little bit from correct. And that's what I'm looking at right now. Scooch that down just a little bit. That's over just a little bit. Again, back up my clamps just a little bit so that it comes down even. There we go. Lock that in. And I'm exaggerating my movements right now so that everyone can see what's going on. Okay, so that had very little shift from side to side from the clamp knobs going down. What I did notice is that as everything came up like this, it moved that way just a little bit. It's not that it moved, it's that its deflection is a little bit further down than I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to loosen up my clamps. One of the things I want to point out about clamp position, when you go to undo it, having them off to the side makes it easier to push it forward so that it unlocks than if you have it here, because now you're trying to pull it around. When you're using the micros, these respond very quickly. They're also very soft. You don't feel a lot of hard engagement when you're moving them. They move and the threads are really smooth, so you don't feel it. You'll find that from 0, there's like a 1 to 3 degree room for wiggle as the threads engage on either side. But again, it's really smooth and it's not a hard feel. So this is something that you'll learn over a couple of usage, how quickly everything engages. Do a little bit of movement there. There we go. Oh, I went the wrong direction. I actually wanted it to go this way. I lost my train of thought while describing these. So got those engaged. Move forward a little bit more. There we go. Now let's lock that in, see where it shifts to. Again, give it the little micro earthquake. There we go. Now, because I was not perfect. We rarely are when we do this. With how far each one moved, I have a small adjustment to make. So I need to move this screen this way just a smidge. So I'm going to use this one. There we go. My center of my registration mark is there. Clamp this down. Give it a little bounce. There we go. My registration marks are lined up, centered, and down just a smidgen to allow for my squeegee pull. And I'm going to do the same on the next two screens. So one of the things I've noticed, every time I've gone and clamped down, my screen has moved down a little bit further from where I want it. This is the difference between having the head relaxed and your screen flat and flush against, and then the difference as it clamps in and everything comes up to where it needs to be, that radial difference. So again, I need to move the micros in concert so that they move up. See how that looks. There we go. All right. Okay. Now that I have my three colors locked in, I'm going to take that white tape and I'm going to put this on top. Since I'm not going to flash this at any point, joys of tape. Since I'm not going to flash this at any point, I don't need to worry about the stability of the tape I'm using. I just need to make sure it's clear, it's that the shirt itself is glued to the palette sufficiently, so that as I print a color, I'm going to end up taking a rag and wiping that color off in between registration. In that aggressive movement, if your shirt isn't wiped down, or sorry, if your shirt isn't locked down with glue properly, it can end up lifting and moving. Which when you're trying to do registration, makes things a little difficult. Using clear tape like this will also end up saving you sample shirts in the long run, because you can use the same shirt, in essence, this portion of the shirt multiple times, where if you're not doing this and not wiping off in between, if you have a 5 or 6 color design, you can end up going through 5 or 7 shirts before you actually get everything in register. I had originally mixed up a different shade, but printing on top of the base white proved to be, it was a little bit lighter in shade than I wanted. So I ended up going to a navy, which when printed on top of a base white itself is going to thin out a little bit and get a little brighter. All darker, cleaner colors will do that when overprinting a base white. So like back when we were talking about in the separation video, this color I could have chosen to knock it directly to the shirt. But for this reason, or for this video, I was doing a base white so we can see all of that. Using the lighter blue directly to the shirt would have given a good effect as well. So here is my lighter shade of blue. This is our light royal and a white that we're using for mixing. I should say an FN white that we're using for mixing. Oh, I put the wrong color in. So you remember when I said about information redundancy on your films? Yeah, this one says cream. I put in light blue. just like any color change, because I'm going to take this ink out and put new ink right in, I'm going to use our Screen Supreme Wash to clean this up. There we go. So this is the cream shade we're going to use. Creams, like brown, are usually made out of a gold shade, somewhere with a little bit of red in that yellow color, and then a lot of white and a sliver of black. Sometimes you can get away with a blue, but the black makes it look really nice and vintagey. All right, my colors are all in. So let's go ahead and print some ink. I'm not going to worry about flooding my screen because the whole purpose right now is just to see where the color is going to fall. All right. Okay. So I've got a little bit of manipulation to do. My screen's a little bit twisted. So I need to bring it this way and this way a little bit. See what I can do. So I'm going to pull it this way using this. You can see that it engages a little bit. You can see this wiggling. And then move forward like that. Move it this way. Pull it a little bit. All right. Let's lock that in. And I was doing that off of memory and feel. I wasn't looking through there. I want to see how close I can get. And that color's off. Let's print again. Oh, nope, I failed. There we go. Get the head to settle a little bit. Pull a squeegee. Okay, so I'm almost back at center. And it looks like I need to pull this up just a little bit. And I'm doing this one by feel and memory. And then I'll do the others by sight, just to show you what the difference is going to be. Because when I look here, I can see if I did something correct. And I'm going to be off a little bit. Yep, I'm off a little bit. All right. So that's why we use this, because now we can take this, look through it, wipe this off. We look through. There we go. There's that. I have a slight adjustment here. Lock that in, double check. Do a little bounce, double check. That's why you do the little bounce. All right. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm pushing down to try and simulate the same deflection that we're going to get when we're actually pulling a squeegee. All right, next color. Ooh, very close. Gonna call that good. Now let's see if the white base lines up to the white base. Okay, so I have everything in register. I'm going to do this one more time. I checked my white to see if it had if the head had shifted over over time. As we talked about the tiny little earthquakes. I always like to do this one more time really quick to make sure that nothing has a dramatic shift. Yep. All right. All right, so they're all in the same spot. So now I'm going to remove the tape. Throw this away. Give it a quick flash. Come on. Sweet. Ooh, it's looking so pretty. All right. Ooh. All right, I'm going to give this a quick flash before I pull that off. Move my flash out of the way so I don't burn things. There we go. And there we go. 4 colors on the Riley 250. Remember, the tighter your choke, the smaller your choke, and we're going with a 0.5 choke, the more you're going to work to get it in tight register. Again, work to your skills, work towards your tools, and do the best that you can with your tools. And always strive to be better. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. If you have questions about this specifically, leave a comment below. I will jump in and I will answer those. If you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button below. Let us know if you have questions for deeper content that you're looking at specifically. Reach out to all of our social media channels. Thanks for watching Screen Printers. Talk to you later.